Is not having sex a divorceable event? Good question. Meaning, if your wife doesn't put out, is it justifiable cause to file for a divorce? No vagina, no victory, no marriage. So this is a question I get. I got this question just yesterday. I had a guy I was talking to. He said, "Hey, coach." I said, "Yes." He said, "If my wife refuses to shift her current narrative with sexuality in our marriage, do you feel like it is a justifiable reason for divorce?" So I sat quiet for a minute. I listened. I gathered my feelings and my thoughts on the subject, and I said, yes, it is a divorceable condition. Your wife doesn't want to put out? Divorce her. It's hard. Right? That's like the interesting piece is that women will hear me say that and they're like, that's ridiculous. We've made vows. We've made vows to be committed to one another, etc. And I said, yeah, but here's the dilemma for your guy. The dilemma for your guy is he is committed to being married to you, which means he's committed to one vagina. He's committed to one set of titties. He's committed to one ass. That's it. He's saying, I'm with you. And then you close up shop and then you don't let him in. Right? And now all of a sudden we're in this place. You're like, okay, well, what are we supposed to do now? Because now this guy's isolated and he's alone. Now, listen, I'm not saying that these guys have not created conditions to be undesirable by their wives. I'm saying that's a real fact too. That's a real fact. Yes. Did you ask him how he's showing up for her? And she's not interested? I totally get it. That's the accountability side on the guy's side. And so we assume that a guy is not showing up and that's why the woman's not putting out. But is this a chicken and egg? I'll give you an example. I have a family member who I'm not going to say who the person is. But this person is a family member. Here was the situation. This person in marriage never put out. Like I'm talking like she would put out like once every 5 to 6 weeks. 5 to 6 weeks. And this guy was not a bad guy. He wasn't like the best guy, but he wasn't a bad guy. And he was like constant. The only thing he wanted was to be wanted by his wife. That's what he wanted. And so he was working hard and playing hard and doing things and trying to be the best he could. He was doing the best he could. But the lack of sexual connection for him and his relationship pushed him into oblivion. He just didn't know what to do. And I watched it go down. Right? I watched it happen. This woman had never had an orgasm in that relationship. Like her whole marriage. They were together for 13 years and they got divorced. She'd never had an orgasm. Now, is that her fault? Is that his fault? I don't know. Is it a lack of tools on his side to know what to do to have her come? Clitoral or G-spot, have her squirt. Was it his fault because he didn't have the tools? Was it her fault? I would say it was both their faults. But the one thing that I know is she didn't see her superpower. Her superpower was her vagina. Like it's the weapon. Men's penises are not nearly as potent and powerful as a woman's vagina. They just aren't. Men don't look at a vagina the same way that women look at penises. And I'm not saying that women don't like penises. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is if you line up 100 guys, you line up 100 girls, you're going to have 100 guys and you're going to talk to them about the beauty of a vagina. And guess what? That man's all about it. It's all about it. And by the way, men's standard for beauty is like very wide. What I mean by that is that guys are kind of interesting because guys can be with all kinds of women. They can be all kinds of women. Bigger women, smaller women, thicker women, thinner women, taller women, shorter women. Most guys don't actually, they have preferences, but at the end of the day, the power of the vagina is legit and real for most men. But women don't see this. In marriage, a lot of times, they don't recognize the kind of power and influence they have with sex and intimacy and the vagina. So then these guys are trying to hunt this down. Like at most, if you were boiled down a man's psychology, a vast majority of what he does is to be able to put his penis in his wife's vagina. A vast majority of the work he does. So he works really hard to make money because he wants to feel powerful. But at the end of the day, what he really wants to do is come home and be taken by his wife. He wants to take his wife. He wants to come home on a Tuesday and have his wife send a text and say, hey, come upstairs for a blowjob. Or he wants to be able to sit in a bath or a hot tub with her and just be massaged. Massage her vagina. She massages his penis. They connect. They make out. They connect. They bond and powerful, right? Most guys, it's pretty simple. Now, on the flip side, though, guys fuck this up for themselves in a massive way. So while men are wanting all this, at the same time, they tend to do exactly the opposite that would have it occur. They do all the wrong shit. They let their bodies go. They let their energy get all over the place. They don't show up and give time and attention to their wife. They don't take her on date nights. I can't tell you the number of dudes I've talked to. I'm like, they'll talk to us about sex problems. I'm like, bro, let me ask you a couple simple questions. She said, yes. I said, question number one. When was the last time you took your wife on a date? He said, well, what do you mean? I said, when was the last time you took your wife out, no kids and no friends, just you two? And a vast majority of the men I talk to, this is not a case that happens more often than about once every 2 to 3 to 4 weeks. So I said, all right, so let me get this straight. You have this woman who has birthed your children. This woman is fighting to provide stability inside the home with you. You're off working and doing what you're doing. And then you come home and expect her to just be all over you, but you're not creating conditions for her to be all over you. You're not taking her out. You're not getting her away from the kids. So then I'll ask him a second question. I'll say, all right, when was the last time you did an overnight staycation where you just took her to a hotel overnight? Right? When? Right? When have you done this? And again, because the date nights are just jacked up, the overnight vacations are about zero. They don't do it. Guys don't even think about it doing it. They're like, well, what do you mean? I was like, just take her away from the kids. Yeah, but we don't have a babysitter. This is the excuse I have. Well, I don't have a babysitter. The fun part is these are the same guys who tell me they want to drive revenue in their businesses up to 4 million this year. They're like, I want to go from 1.5 to 4 million in revenue. We're going to make these hiring moves. We're going to make these changes. And then they'll say, and my wife doesn't want to fuck me. And I'm like, okay, well, why don't you fix that? And they're like, well, you know, we don't have a babysitter. We don't know who to watch the kids. I said, hold on. How is it possible you can sit over here in the business world? You can easily go hire people to solve problems and to help you build to 4 million. But when it comes to your wife and it comes to your children, you don't seem to see it the same, which is the idea of hiring a full-time nanny to cover the kids so that you can take your wife out on a date every week and then take her on a staycation once a month, overnight or over the weekend. You think that is a waste of money. Your brain doesn't even compute that that makes sense. Why? And that's typically the response I get. It's crickets. Guys don't even know why. They're like, well, I didn't even think about it. I was like, if sex is so important to you, then you've got to fight to create conditions so that she can show up and disconnect from the children and lean into you. You're not doing it. You're not doing it. You don't take her on date nights every week. You don't take her on a monthly getaway. And then I'll ask him a third question. How many vacations are you taking her on without the kids for multiple days? 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. And people will see some of the vacations. I'm going to take my wife to Bora Bora here in about a month and a half for her birthday. We'll go to Cancun for a week here at the end of this month with just my wife and I. Every month, my wife and I, every month or so, we go on a pretty good trip, 3 to 5 days. And people are like, how can you afford to do that? I said, how can you afford not to do that? How can you afford not to do that? Like, how can you afford to not take your wife out? How can you afford to not have the weekend getaway? How can you afford to not take your wife on a week-long trip? How? Like, you already know the cost of being sexually frustrated. You already know the cost of being sexually angry and upset. You already know how different it is for you when you've been fucked right. And every guy knows this. Every guy knows this. A guy that's been fucked right the night before, like if I got fucked right last night, then when I wake up today, my experience of life changes. The way I see myself changes. The way I experience how I sell, market, lead my teams, etc. There's something about draining a man's balls and connected with the woman that he cares about that gives him certainty, confidence, and courage. And you're like, bro, you're not helping yourself out here. Make the investment in creating the conditions so that your wife can be in a place to desire to fuck you more often. But you're not doing it. But the worst part is, and ladies, I'm feeling for you, is that your man's not doing this shit and then he still expects you to want to be all over him. And you're like, dude, how can I be all over you? You're not even trying. You're not even trying, bro. You're not even giving her a chance to let go. There's so much mommy guilt, mommy stress, mommy anxiety. If you can't get her to separate from that reality, there's no chance. So then I'll say the following. Say, bro, stepping out of the shower, butt ass naked. When you look at yourself in the mirror, I got one simple question for you. It's like, yeah. And I go, are you fuckable? He said, well, what do you mean? I was like, are you fuckable? Like, when you look at yourself in the mirror, are you inspired by what you see? Or are you an overweight, hairy bastard who doesn't manscape and doesn't take care of yourself? You got dingleberries in your ass crack hair, and you're trying to wonder why your wife doesn't want to just rip your clothes off and sit on your face. You're like, she doesn't want to rip your clothes off and sit on your face because you're not fuckable. Look at you, bro. You're not even taking care of yourself. Yet at the same time, there's a standard for women to take care of themselves. And by the way, I'm not saying all women take care of themselves because they do not. But as a guy, you're like, okay, let's check this out then. You're not fuckable. Look at what you've done to your body. You're not taking care of yourself. Number one. Number two, you're not taking her on date nights. Number three, you're not taking her on weekend getaways. And number four, you're not taking her on quarterly trips. Okay, so let's try some other things. I was like, all right, well, on top of this, like, how do you dress? Like, are you dressing to impress? Are you dressing to get laid? Or have you just given up on that shit after 15 years wearing the same baggy ass pants and then, you know, that fucking t-shirt that you won at some CrossFit competition 10 years ago? And I get this because it's like shit I used to do. I just kind of felt entitled to sex because I was married. Not recognizing that being with a powerful, beautiful woman like my wife, shit's not going to fly. It's not going to fly at all. There was a game I had to learn. I had to learn the married game of seduction. This required me to package myself and position myself as a sexy man as if I was single. Now, let me come back to this couple I was telling you about. This is my family. So they don't have sex hardly at all. All he wanted was sex. And she told me, she's like, well, he never would show up and he didn't do this. And I said, listen, I hear what you're saying. I was like, I got also a question for you. What do you think might have happened to his certainty and confidence if you'd been fucking him right? Because my experience of him every time he talked to me was he was so sexually frustrated he couldn't even think straight. You're a beautiful woman. She is. She's a super beautiful woman, but she was like Barbie in a box. That's what I called it, Barbie in a box. My wife was Barbie in a box for a while too. It was like this beautiful woman sitting in a box that I couldn't touch, constantly rejected, constantly negged, constantly told no, constantly in this place as a man. I was like, woman, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's like, I'm married to you. I'm doing the best I can, but you're hiding over here in a box like an ice cube and I can't get in. Like, help me get in. I'm trying to manage this game. Help me get in. So I'm looking at this game with this couple. They finally end up getting divorced. Watch what happens next. This woman that I know, connected family, this woman then goes wild. She goes wild. She's like 33, 34 years old at the time. They got a couple kids together. She goes wild. She gets fit. She starts wearing scantily tank tops with nipples popping through. And she fucks about 9 different guys over the next like 6 months. Just goes on a rampage with herself. And she deserved it. I was happy for her because she came for the first time. She'd never had an orgasm before. I was like, there you go. It's amazing. Good for you. But I asked her, I said, what would have happened if this version of you had just shown up in the relationship you were in? You guys had so much good shit going on. But you chose to be such a prude with your body. You shut the shop on your vagina and left this guy isolated in the desert. And then you expected him to produce and go make tons of money. See, flip the script on this. Women, flip the script. People hear this from me like, oh, what do you think? Women are just a vagina? I was like, no, women are not just a vagina. But at a certain level to a man, you are a vagina. And you're the vagina that he chose. He's saying, you're the one. I want your breasts. I want your vagina. I want your ass. I want your naked body all over my naked body. I choose you. So when you shut it down and leave him no options, it kills his ability to create. So I asked her, I said, what would have happened if you had leveraged sex as a motivating tool instead of a weapon of destruction? Instead of constantly withdrawing, instead of constantly sitting there waiting for him to cross the line, what if you crossed the line? What if you chose to cross the line? What if you made the decision to cross the line? What if instead of waiting for him to come to you, you did the opposite, ladies? You decided to put the lingerie on. You decided to come and do something crazy like text him in the afternoon and tell him to come to the bedroom, take a shower with you and blow it. What if you did that? Now, there are some women who see the magic in this. And there are a vast majority, particularly Christian women, who have been taught to be so goddamn prudish with how they deal with their bodies. So much guilt, so much shame about being, quote, what, a slut? All being a slut means is that you want to have sex, which is great. This is what your man wants. He wants you to feel free. There's no guy I've ever met that doesn't want his wife to feel sexually liberated and on fire. Not one. Now, on the flip side, the guy's not doing what he needs to. So I came back to this family member and I said, what do you think would have happened? She's like, I don't know. I said, you're never going to know. Because you decided to let go of the sexual tension the minute you were divorced. It was easy to go fuck all these guys because you could just be this new version of you. And that's the challenge that couples face, is this rebirth of this new version of you while sitting in communion with the person you've already been with. It's hard. My wife and I have gone through this 7 or 8 or 9 times. We're going through it again right now, where we both choose to rise to a new level of intimacy, connection, and power. And inevitably, it's wrapped around the topic of sexuality. So there's this piece inside of a guy, though, that has to have it. No different than a woman wants to feel safe and secure. So ladies will come to me and be like, bro, you're always making this about sex. You know, well, what if he's being an asshole and da-da-da-da-da? And I said, let me ask you this. What if your husband just stopped coming home with any money? Like, how long would you hang out with him if he couldn't pay the bills? Huh? If he couldn't pay the bills, how long would you hang out? 2 months? 3 months? 6 months? At what point would you say, fuck this guy, and you'd bail? Because you know there's a line to that. There's a limit to which if he stops making money, you'd leave. So how is it any different if you stop putting out? Why should he stick around? If he's delivering on his side, why would he stick around and hang out with you if behind you are hundreds of other women that absolutely would adore this man for who he's being? Now, we're making the assumption that the guy's showing up. And this is what we do here at Warrior. Part of the married game we teach men is how to become provocateurs. We teach them how to become assassins in the game of seduction. And there's a lot that goes into that. And the same powerful tools of seduction in sex are the same powerful tools that exist in seduction in business. So the good news is making money and getting paid and getting laid kind of fit in the same genre skill sets. But here's what I'm going to leave you with. Gentlemen, if you are in a relationship with a woman who refuses to put out, makes you feel guilty, makes you feel shameful, makes you feel stupid or like a pervert for it, you need to stop and confront this shit immediately. Immediately. This shit has to end. Period. You have to admit that sex matters because most guys don't admit it. Good men won't admit it. They won't admit that sex is like oxygen to a man. To a woman, she wants to be all seduced and warmed up, etc. To most men, they just need to have a penis and a vagina, and then they need to feel wanted by this woman. And most men are good men. They're doing the best they know how. Here at Warrior, we teach them how to be better so that the conditions for sexual intimacy become real, they become possible, they become natural, and this result itself becomes something that feeds the marriage. There's no reason. Most of the reason these marriages are dying is because people don't know how to show up. They don't. They quit the game once they get married. They let the kids consume their reality. My wife made a comment to me here about 2 or 3 weeks ago. She said, we're going to live our retirement years now. Yeah, we had 2 new children, 4 years old and 1 year old. But we're not going to pour all of our life into our children while letting the best years of our lives go to the fucking wayside. And hopefully we're going to find ourselves in deep passion when she's in menopause in her 50s. No, we're going to go now. We're going to go now. And this piece of you pursuing her has to start now, my man. You can't just sit on the sideline and hope that things are going to change. They won't. And if she shut down the shop, guess what? You can open it back up. But it's going to require you to change. Now, once you've done the things we teach here at Warrior, and you've been in the mix and pushing 6 months to a year, and she still won't shift, divorce her. Divorce her. So ladies, I'm going to tell you right now, if your man's showing up and you keep being a prude and you keep closing the vagina down and you keep acting like a crazy bitch about it, guess what? He has every right in the world to move on. No different than if this man couldn't pay the bills and couldn't provide economically, you would have every right in the world to move on also. The crazy thing we found here is that when men start to live this way and they courageously confront their wives with this topic, what opens up is something totally different. What opens up is a relationship that feeds both people so deeply and so passionately. A relationship that feeds both of them so intimately. And the reality of creation explodes. The world they see explodes. The opportunities they see explodes. The game itself explodes and changes. So listen. Ladies, sometimes you're hearing me and you're like, what a dick. Well, the challenge is I'm telling you truth. The man you're with, he wants to fuck. The man you're with wants TTF. He wants to be told he's the man. He wants to be touched often. And he wants to be fucked frequently. You don't tell him, you don't touch him, and you don't fuck him. Don't be surprised by the man that you get. It's like starving a dog. You're like, why are you barking at me? Why are you biting me? Because he's fucking starving. He's terrified. Add to the fact that many women today are so goddamn critical about fucking everything. All they can look at is all the shit their husband's not doing. He's not doing this, and he's not doing this, and he's not doing this. Bitch, look in the mirror. You think somehow you're flawless in this game? Vast majority of your men are doing the best they know how. Here at Warrior, we're just able to teach them how to do it better, how to do it more efficient, and how to be strategic about it. Because ladies, at the end of the day, we know what you want. You want some safety, you want some security, and you want some seduction. And if we can hit the triple crown, game over. It works. The divorces, most of them that are occurring, do not need to happen if these individuals could just get on the same page. Because I think you'll find there was a reason why you married that person. At some point, you loved them. At some point, you maybe even lusted after them. And it is possible to re-spark that lust. It's possible to re-spark that passion. Ladies, it's possible to feel that spark when you see your man come in the house again. And he's got that look and you get giggly inside about feeling like this is my guy. And gentlemen, there's also an opportunity for you to be able to see your wife from that same place. To crave her, desire after her, not fucking swipe asses on Instagram. Fuck all these 23-year-old little girls. You don't need all that shit. You need the woman you have right in front of you. But consider you're the one that put her to sleep. Now you're the one that gets to wake her up. And if you wake her up, what you're going to find, which is what I found, is the most deep, potent, passionate, purposeful sex, intimacy, and communication that takes your relationship to a place that defies logic. So if we can help you out, you know what we do here. Wake Up Warrior, I'd love to help you out. Check it out at wakeupwarrior.com. My man, we're starting into this game itself. Warrior Launch is your entry point. Let me teach you the tools, the games that put my marriage back on track, has put thousands of men's marriages back on track with the curriculum you see right here in those boxes. Check it out by heading to wakeupwarrior.com today.